morning. I'm wondering what it is we people go out to see. As we're driving down the road, there's a hold up or an accident. We slow down to look. Curiosity. An incident in the street or sirens or emergency vehicles. We go out. What's happening? Curiosity. We gather in stadiums to watch sport. Big teams come out, or big players, or whatever it is, we gather. And the bigger the team, the bigger the player, the bigger the event, the more people. Entertainment, or going to a pop or rock or music or whatever it is, concert or a play or whatever, from theatres through to massive stadiums filled with people listening to music, singing music. What is it? Entertainment. Maybe it's part of the soundtrack of our lives. Stories or songs that we've grown up with that bring back, that were important to us. Or maybe they're music that has a purpose or meaning, and entertains but inspires. Or what other things do we gather for, go out for? The reason I'm curious or asking this question is that this week's story from Mark's story of Jesus, begins in the most bold and audacious way. He says something like, the beginning of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. It's bold and audacious. I mean, good news. We're going to hear good news if we keep reading. But in the context of his time and place. Good news was about the emperor. The emperor might have had a new baby boy born. The emperor may be married, or the emperor's army might be winning a war, or they've invaded a new nation. Good news always was attributed to the emperor and what the emperor was doing. Most of the emperors were sons of emperors who were deified, who were made gods under Roman imperial theology. And so they were the sons of God. And they themselves became God, deified in their own right, often before they died. The things that Mark is saying were all attributed to the Caesar, to the emperor. And yet here he is saying them about this itinerant Jewish rabbi of poor and meagre beginnings, promising good news. And he launches straight into this story of John the Baptist, introduced with words from ancient writings, a mash of words from different prophets, but attributed to Isaiah. There'll be one in the wilderness preparing the way. And John comes as this eccentric prophet-like figure, dressed in the manner of the prophets of old, camel's hair, eating locusts and wild honey, living in the wilderness, the dry, arid regions, the rough places around Judea. But people were going out to him. It says the people from the cities and towns were coming to listen to John. And I'm wondering what they were going to listen to. What is it they expected or wanted to hear? Was it curiosity, perhaps, for some? Who is this strange guy that people are going to listen to? What's it about? Perhaps those some were looking for something deeper for their lives, for their being. These are people who had difficult lives under Rome. People whose lives were oppressed by the rich and the powerful, both in their own land but in the Roman Empire. People who were under the heavy burden of taxation and who struggled. 95% of the people were rural poor, just impoverished people, eking out a living, surviving. It was hard. So what were they going out to hear? I imagine in some ways it was someone, a leader, who would speak of justice, of hope, of another way. For many of these people who may have been regarded as sinners, people who did the wrong thing often without knowing it, were excluded from much of the religious life. Who knows what they were going out for? But as I come to this story, and Mark refers to Isaiah 40, which is this old ancient text, but it's well known because it's part of the grounding, the foundations of Martin Luther King's great speech, that I have a dream. It's about the high places being brought down and the low places being lifted up and the rough places being evened out, so that those who don't have enough get what they need, and those who are oppressed are lifted up, and those who are oppressors are put more in their place, so that there's an equality across human race, where people are equal, not the same, diverse and different, bringing different things. It's a bit like when I've driven occasionally out to where the Western Sydney airport is. It used to be undulating and rolling hills, not that high, but open lands. Now the hills and the valleys have been filled in and flattened, and it's smooth and it's perfectly flat for runways and infrastructure. It's kind of like that. And originally, I guess the vision was of a highway. The people were in exile in Babylon, held not so much captive, or in captivity in Babylon, and not allowed to go home. But there would be a highway, the road, the way between Jerusalem and Babylon would be smoothed out, a highway for the Lord to come and release the captives and bring them home. And there's something of that in what Mark is saying. And I imagine the people going out to hear John speak of hope, of a different way, and of one who is coming, who would lead them into this promised way of God. And he invited them to follow, to be baptized, cleansed and renewed and transformed in their mind and spirit and being. What is it we yearn for? What is it we long for? What is it we hope for? What is it we come to Christmas expecting? Do we expect anything to happen? Do we expect this story to change us? Do we expect to meet the baby in the manger or the grown adult, this Jesus who invites us into a different way? Do we expect to hear something that is hopeful or challenging or turns our world upside down, that subverts the culture and the standards and the priorities of this world to become something different, more equal, more egalitarian, more generous and sharing, more inclusive of all people? Do we come to Christmas expecting that love and hope and joy and peace that's proclaimed in every place can actually be real in the life of the world? Do we come to Christmas expecting to fall into this way that Jesus proclaims, that Mark's story of Jesus will lift up and proclaim through his 16 chapters? What do we hope for? What is in our hearts and our being that we yearn for? What is that deep thing that we would like to see for ourselves and in our world? I imagine that the people that went out to hear John heard something of this in his message. And those who then followed in this way of Jesus found a deeper, truer, more loving way of justice, peace and hope. And they're the promises for Christmas. But only if we will open our hearts and our being to this one who comes again and again and again, who comes in the midst of life to open us to new possibilities, new ways of being, new hope. This is the promise of God. And this is the promise of Christmas.